Coming up, the Brooklyn Nets come back once again, taking down the New York Knicks. Oh, they won the trade and so much more. Jalen Wilson shines, Noah Clowney shoves, and Dariq Whitehead finds himself riding the pine. We dive into it all coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast, rated on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Marmot. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We are 100% free on all those great platforms. And let you know, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms, they do apply. And one thing that you can say about this Brooklyn Nets team is they may start slow, Doug, but when it comes to Summer League, they finish strong. Now 2-1, surging towards a championship opportunity like we all knew they would, led certainly by one Jalen Wilson, who has been a sniper from the outside.
Well, I guess someone didn't get the tanking memo that this is not what this season is about. This season is not about winning. We're not looking out here to be a bunch of tryhards and just grab victory from the jaws of defeat. It's supposed to go the other way. I mean, set the tone early with this team. Make sure those W's become L's. It's the only way we're gonna, as it was put so eloquently to me, capture the flag. Flag with 2 G's coming up. I feel bad too. We'll get to Jalen Wilson. I feel bad because someone said that to me on Twitter, and I thought it was perfect, and I just can't find it. I want to give you credit, and I couldn't find it. I'll dig a little deeper, but I thought, capture the flag was a great way to think about the season. But no, in general, it is fun to see this team. The Nets fight back all the way, really down against the Knicks, dialed it up defensively, had a really, really long stretch where they really locked it down and were able to crawl back in. I mean, this game looked all but over, and we got to talk about Jalen Wilson here, who I think, we saw this last season. But if there's going to be sort of a jumping off point around a team that can possibly, jettison some wings because they have other guys who, look like they're able to play like real NBA minutes. Jalen Wilson's had a summer league that only reminds us, I think, about sort of what he stepped off from last year, which was, starting to put together good quality rotation minutes for the Nets.
Yeah, and it's all that you can ask for. I mean, we'll talk about Noah Clowney and what he's put together here. We're going to get to Dariq Whitehead, which has been unfortunate to say the least here over the course of these first few games. But in Jalen Wilson's case, it's one of the funny things for his game is the outside shooting, obviously, right? Okay, as long as you're doing that, then you feel like that's the NBA skill set that you need to master here. Now, early on, and it still happened in all 3 of these games, there's been times, especially early in these games, when Jalen Wilson has this watch me put the move on, I'm going to the cup, baby. And it all kind of becomes a mess and sloppy. But as the games progress and as you get to the third and fourth quarter, Jalen Wilson and Noah Clowney to an extent as well, you see what quality NBA reps mean for you. You're able to kind of dial yourself in. You understand that it's about, a couple of key passes, ratcheting up defensive intensity, forcing some turnovers are going to get us some easy opportunities. And it does have all of the energy to me of 6-man guy. That is exactly what Jalen Wilson seems to be repping himself up for right now. And if you're Sean Marks, if you're Jordy Fernandez and you're thinking about the NBA season, you're looking at Jalen Wilson and saying okay, there's our spark plug. There's our high energy guy. There's a glue guy, something that over the years when the Nets have had those fun teams that are easy to root for, there's always been that player that comes in off the bench and then everybody really gets around. So that role identity for Jalen Wilson just seems to be crystallizing in Summer League here. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm never surprised when I see guys that were able to start putting stuff together at the NBA level, and then they go back to Summer League, and all of a sudden
apply lessons learned.
It's not, like we joked yesterday, it's not Drew Holiday and it's not Jaylen Brown on the other side of you. It's Jacob Tobin and Tyler Kolek, right? And Ariel Hukporty, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're maybe I will try to get this guy off the dribble. And it makes sense. You should you should expand your game. This is a, depressed skill environment. And if your skill is already translating to the NBA level, it makes sense to start trying some new stuff. So I've always am encouraged by situations like that, even if I'm not fooled by the idea that it will translate to the next level all the time in terms of speed, length, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for Jalen Wilson, what clearly does translate, and we've said this and known this, and even with some fits and starts last season, is that the 3-point shooting is just there, right? He came out of college late. and he was not late. He was on time. Congratulations, he graduated. But for late for the NBA in that, like, he went all 4 years at Kansas. But when you can come out of the school and get to the NBA with like one translatable NBA skill, and for him, he has the requisite size, so that's not skill, that's just, logistics. And then 2, he can shoot from 3. I mean, he's shooting 49% from 3 for summer league here, and
Yeah.
it's looked
On
good.
almost 10 looks a game, 10 shots a game. Yeah.
He's getting them. He's getting the shots up. It looks good. He clearly has shown he has the range. Some are contested. And that's just such a good sign for a guy who, like I said, like really had a meteoric sort of like 3-point shooting rise when he first kind of got minutes last year. Then it dipped back down later in the season.
Yeah.
But I think what we're seeing here is that getting back with a big club this year and being able to shoot from 3, I'm just increasingly less worried about whether he can do it, because he's doing it on a stage and from the range that you want to see here in summer league so far.
Yeah, and the other part of it is, I agree with everything there and what it can mean for him going forward. The other nice part is, one, that he got some real NBA run last season, obviously, and now going into a developmental year, it's the kind of thing where you hope that Jordi Fernandez and the coaching staff can look at him and say, okay, now one box is already checked here, the perimeter shooting, the 3-point shooting. In a year when we're not concerned about the wins per se, or we are, but we're concerned about, winning too many games, we can look at maybe some other areas and take this. Like, I think this gap year for certain players can be incredibly beneficial before you get to the 2025 season. You think about that draft class and capturing the flag, as we obviously coined ourselves on this show. Jalen Wilson can maybe develop some of those supplemental skill sets, and that's fine because it won't take away from anything that he's already accomplished. You put on top of that he is, as you mentioned, an older player coming out of college. These guys are usually high floor, low ceiling type players. But to have him look like he is going to be a hit and going to be a success is just one more reminder, why getting all these picks from the Kevin Durant trade and all these picks now from the Mikal Bridges trade, why it's a good thing to have a GM like Sean Marks at the helm. And this extends to the scouting department, obviously, as well. But in the rare instances when they've been able to draft, they're usually pretty darn successful. And having him come out and look like this and look like he's going to have a very clear role at the NBA level, that means a lot, because they're going to have better draft capital going forward. But this is where you say, hey, can we supplement our roster in a different way? Of course. So he's only increased his value and only increased, I think, the outlook of how the Nets can build themselves going forward here. Coming up, though, in 1 second. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. We will touch on one Noah Clowney because this guy wants to be in the mix. We need to get to the regular season immediately because this guy is taking it too seriously at the summer league level, but also Dariq Whitehead and his unfortunate struggles to this point. We'll get into all that coming up next.
All right, before we get to that, tell you my friends over at Gametime. Look, it's summer. That means MLB games, baseball during the summer. There's nothing better and there's no place better to get your tickets than over at Gametime. It's an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball. Makes getting tickets faster, so much easier. The prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets the first pitch. Where else are you going to find that? If you go over to Gametime right now, they got Rays at Yankee Stadium Friday after the All-Star break, starting at $26. We'll take that, our friends over at Gametime. Gametime has got so much to get you hooked up with tickets, last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all in pricing, not just baseball either. Comedy, concerts, theater, it's all there for you. It takes the guesswork out of MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
All right, so as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about, yes, the excitement around one Jalen Wilson and the fact that he is cementing himself going forward. One element to that before we get into Noah Clowney, because it's really just a footnote on how aggressive he's going at these summer league games. The other thing for Jalen Wilson and for the Brooklyn Nets is, we talked about on our last episode, go check it out. It's a fantastic discussion about Cam Johnson, about Dorian Finney-Smith and moving these players and how the Nets don't need to feel pressure. The one thing is that when it's only mid-July and there's a long time between now and the start of the NBA season, this also, at least performances like this in Summer League, also at least alleviate the stress if you are the Brooklyn Nets. It's a tank year. Wins and losses don't matter. But if you want to make sure that you have guys ready to step into starting roles, Jalen Wilson is filling that void here for you where you can say, okay, and if something comes up between now and the regular season, we don't look at the roster and start asking questions. Are we going to look like some guys scrambling here in the summer league games as opposed to still want to put out a professional NBA product when it comes to October?
Yeah, I mean, they'll still be bad, so no worries there.
Yes. No
It's
worries
just
there.
like
Yeah, no
whether
worries,
you have guys.
no worries, guys.
Yeah, it's not going to look. It's a step. It'll be a step above a summer league and G League team. It'll be a step below a real functioning like NBA team. Again, by design,
Right where we
totally
wanna be.
fine. Get these guys reps.
Yeah.
Get these guys. Yeah, well, I do get where to me, all reps aren't created equal. And actually, we'll talk about this a little more with Dariq Whitehead like in a little bit. But
Yeah.
to me, it's not good enough to just say, "Hey, roll the balls out in the court, give some guys some run, and they'll develop." Like that's not. I don't think that's true. I think that you can put guys in bad positions to one, hurt their confidence, two, put them in bad positions to capitalize on their skills. So I don't think it's good enough to just say, oh, just play all the young guys and we'll see what happens. I actually don't think that's a good idea all the time. Now, sometimes it is, but we've seen lots of examples where teams have done this and it's stunted growth. There hasn't been development. It gets confusing about what guys even are. Like, there's just lots of examples. The Rockets were like this when they had Silas as the coach before they got Ime. It was just kind of like a total free-for-all. It's like, okay, well, it's Kevin Porter Jr.'s turn. Now it's Jalen Green's turn. Are they good? No idea. We can't tell. Like, there's no system. It's like we can't tell. There's no system. It's just kind of it's open gym style, and we're just not exactly sure if it's working or not. So I don't think that all just playing time is created equal, especially around young guys. This is all to say, at this level, we want to be able to see guys who like already are like NBA competent and then running within systems. Even if you're going to lose because your talent level is lower, you're not just throwing guys out there for the sake of throwing them out there. So I don't feel like that's the case with Whitehead. With Jalen Wilson. We can talk about some of these. By the way, Clowney too, who we can talk about now. Like, I don't think that's the case with Clowney either. He's clearly shown that he's going to be able to kind of just handle the speed and the physicality and just the beginnings of the decision making that you need to make at the NBA level. And that's important. Like, you need to show that before you can start playing, which is why we always said it kind of worked out for him that he came up so late last year.
Well, and by the way, when we do talk about Noah Clowney, this is where I'm like, hey, feel free to not have him play any more summer league games because you mentioned the decision.
I'm surprised he even played the one.
You mentioned this. Yeah, last episode you said like, hey, where are we going to be at in terms of we're 2 games in? Do we need to see certain players anymore? We've already kind of checked these boxes. Noah Clowney is, just to your point, doing everything that you want to see him do. He's knocking down some straightaway threes from above the break. He's getting in there on rebounds with some putbacks. He's also defensively showing the right positional, the right, basketball IQ, beating guys to the spot, getting in position, taking massive charges, having summer league referees say, I don't know, looks like a foul to me, go to the charity stripe. Like yesterday's game, I was like, oh my God, he's getting chippy. He's shoving guys in and around the basket and get into some scraps. I love everything that I'm seeing from it. And then I'm stopping and going, okay, but let's not go ahead and overexert ourselves in this summer league run here. And it doesn't matter. He doesn't have any history, right? Like some of it's shell shock around other guys that have a hard time staying healthy and on the floor. But when you see Noah Clowney time after time going to his back because he's trying to take those charges in, let's be honest, meaningless summer league basketball, I'm like, oh my God, stop. Just stop. Get this kid to the regular season and let's watch him develop. But he has shown, as we say, with bigger players, front court players, it's hard to get quality reps in, game over game in the summer league. But when you watch him isolated away from the basketball, even, you're just seeing him make all the right kind of decisions here. So it's just been a great, I think, non-stat line driven developmental summer here from what we're seeing from Noah Clowney at this point, which, by the way, speaks to what they said last year. The guy's a human sponge, asks a ton of questions, takes in the information. When you give him a correction or an insight, apparently it's I absorb, I apply, and then I go ahead and I produce it on the court. So you would expect this type of process for him here, even in a few games in summer league.
He took one fall yesterday where he wasn't slow to get up, but it was under the basket, and I was thinking, oh no. It was in the second half. It was kind of later in the game. I don't remember the exact play, but I believe it was him going to the basket and he hit the ground. But I just remember he was laying under the basket, and I was thinking, oh, not like this, come on, let's not get hurt. And it was just a sort of a testament to, sort of the expectation level. It's actually interesting. I mean, you never want anyone to get hurt, but it's interesting about when guys start to sort of like reach new levels, your worry about their actual injury go up too, because you're
Yeah.
thinking, I mean, this guy's a real dude, and the Nets, clearly he's going to be part of the Nets, hopefully a Nets team for a very long time. And so you
Yeah.
start kind of worrying about them on a separate level each time they, I mean, the biggest, the all time case with this was watching KD play. Every single time KD would hit
Right.
the ground, you'd think, oh, your stomach would just absolutely drop out of drop out of the bottom of you, because you're
There
thinking,
was something that was like, I know this is like we're go back in the Wayback Machine here, but there was something agonizing when you have a superstar talent and an older one and one who has an injury history. There was something agonizing. It was every game, every rep. You're like, oh no. You know what? Maybe he
oh
doesn't
yeah.
play. Maybe shut him down for 30 games. We'll bring him back towards the end of the season. Let's just get him through this, because it is that type of angst when the expectations are so high.
Yeah, yeah, and just can't help it. Just like, so anyway, and the thing too is with guys like this, your eyes are just drawn to them a little bit more too, right? Because they're
Yeah.
just they're better. They're better. He's just better. So anyway, with Clowney, it's like, hey, let's just keep this guy safe. I mean, look, it's not like he's shown so much that he's outplayed his summer league. There are times where it's like so clear where the guy just doesn't belong at all. And I
Yep.
don't think he's probably there yet. It was more just from a preservation standpoint, for him, really more
Yeah.
than anything else. I don't think we're in a situation where the guy, like you start to see it with, like guys like this year's like Cam Whitmore, guys like this. It's like, I don't think we
Mhm.
need to see too much else. Almost like Reed Shepard's almost like this now. And he's like been in the NBA for 2 minutes, but like, but I don't think Clowney's at that level. It's more just thinking, hey, this guy looks like he's really part of the future. Let's not waste it here on summer league stuff. And I can see the pushback to that.
Yeah, and by the way, too, it's like these games in general. At the end of this, it was Noah Clowney and Jalen Wilson combining on defensive, blitzing schemes, getting the ball out of the Knicks' hands, all that kind of stuff. And it is less than 85% of the summer league, 90% of it is really clunky and sloppy, and there's a million turnovers, and it's chaotic at times, and it's hard to carve out those consistent opportunities for any player, let alone one of the bigs like Noah Clowney. But I do agree with you. He's showing progress. It's not like we're sitting here saying this guy is beyond development,
No.
because clearly he's still young, but still very much on the right path. Coming up here in a second, unfortunately, somebody not on the right path right now is Dariq Whitehead. We did not set an expectation that he needed to be the most improved player in the summer league, but we certainly thought there'd be more to take away than what we've seen through 3 games. We're going to get into that and his benching coming out of halftime in game number 3 here in just one moment. All right, as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, we go ahead and remind you that Locked On has launched the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with all the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the Amazon free Fire TV channels app. Okay. When we turn our attention to Dariq Whitehead, listen, I'm not going to sit here and judge his career on 3 games. It would be irresponsible. The kid has been injured. It's been tough. That being said, the equivalent of podcasting of what he did on the court would be I come on this show, I trip, bite onto the microphone, rip the electrical wires out of the wall, and end up unconscious on the floor. It's been brutal. It has been absolutely brutal. And you want to pull on any little thread that you can, but there has not been shy of one glorious 3-pointer in game number 2, but he wiped all that away in game 3 when he was missing short and long and to the side and just every which way. It's been really, really hard. And I'm not even trying to be funny about it, because I feel absolutely terrible for this kid right now, who's clearly just trying to get a sense of his basketball body again, but it looks absolutely brutal in every single aspect.
Yeah, I feel really bad for him. Like it's been as bad as you can imagine. Really, it's so bad. I mean, he's 4 for 34 from the field, 13%. He's 2 for 21 from 3, 10%. And I'm rounding up, by the way. And it's just been bad. And yes, there's like,
Yeah.
the injury stuff. We talked about it at length yesterday. There's
Mhm.
injury stuff for sure. And there's like a long time off the court. And and look, when you've had foot surgeries and stuff like that, or just like anything with your legs specifically, it can take time to just like trust your body again. And so I get that part of it. What I feel for him in the sense that like this has been so bad. And it's not even like, you mentioned the shots. It's not even like the shots are like, okay, well, he's shooting 10%, but we're like, we got some in and outs here. We got some, just kind of like, oh, just kind of ran a little bad. I mean, they're all over the place. There's
Yeah.
it looks like the lift isn't totally there. It's the shots are just they're missing all it's if you're missing all in one direction too, it's like one thing too. They're just kind of missing all over the place to the point where he just probably just doesn't trust it at all. So I think
Yeah.
coming out of this, probably something of a morale, not killer, but a morale downer for him. I stick by what we said yesterday in that I think he's like a full season in the G League. Like a full season, not even
Well,
seeing the court unless the G League stuff has been so great that you just can't help, like sort of what you said about summer league. It's this G League stuff is so amazing that you just can't keep him here anymore because it's just like you're not doing him any favors at this point. But he feels so far away from that. G League's harder than summer league, by the way. So
yes.
like
Yeah, yeah. There's a
it's not like,
difference.
so I know people are gonna say, well, get the G League. G League is not easier. G League's harder than summer league. So there's outside of just like a few high draft picks that get to go into the summer league each year. Like a lot of these summer league guys won't break into teams into their G League programs. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not going to get necessarily easier at that level when it gets to Long Island. So I really want to make sure like people understand that. So yeah, it's been horrible. And I was wondering too, you mentioned he didn't come out and start the second half, and I couldn't tell if that was by design or it was
Well,
just by performance or like what was going on.
Well, the one thing I'll say too is you mentioned Noah Clowney and the under the basket and getting a little bit tense. There was a play. It may have been in the second half. I can't remember exactly when it happened. Where Dariq Whitehead he ended up going to the foul line. As he went to
Oh
the
yeah.
foul line, he was just kind of stamping out his one leg, just flexing a little something. And maybe unlike players, Jalen Wilson, Noah Clowney, who have been healthy since they've been Brooklyn Nets, and you go, oh, okay, good. He popped back up, all good. Anytime, this is the other thing you always watch for with a player that has had injuries is anytime it looks like something, it looks like a tweak or a twist or anything at all, you get a heightened awareness around it because now you're saying, well, is that what follows him, right? And it's one of the things that we talked about very early on in the offseason around Dariq Whitehead and just the rumors that he was getting back healthy. It's okay, but how long does it take before you can look at him and say, okay, the injuries are behind us here, right? It's been a long path all the way through college and into the pros of having this injury history. So that part of it too is something that I continue to watch. Listen, can it end up being chalked up to? Like it's almost funny to think, well, maybe it comes out that yes, he's getting close to 100%, but he's not fully 100% yet. But he's healthy enough to be out there and running around on the court and getting some reps. You'd almost want to hear that now rather than have it be this is 100% healthy and he's just trying to get his legs underneath him. He's trying to get a feel for the game again. Because right now, and when you went back and watched some of his college tape and you said, well, because of the foot, that slowed him down a little bit, the burst and these other things. Well, now I'm watching him and I'm asking the question, is he 100% healthy? How much of a lag is there because he hasn't played consistent reps for so long? Because if not, I'm seeing a guy that doesn't have the burst. I'm seeing a guy that can't take the corner in the summer league against lesser talent. So there is an equation happening here where I think in the end you're probably right. Hey, let's get you to the G League where there's absolutely zero pressure, where no one's going to have their eyeballs on you. We'll hear stat lines, we'll see box scores if it starts to cook. But there probably is some pressure right now for him internally of going to the summer league and getting the chance to show what he's capable of. And then you have guys like Tyrese Martin being bigger contributors in comebacks against the Knicks and knocking down three-pointers from the outside at 25 years old while you're struggling to find your rhythm at any point now through 3 full games.
Yeah, look, to be very clear, like with Dariq Whitehead, like the pedigree is such that you'll also wait a long time for this, right?
And
Like
he's young enough
so
to wait a long time, by the way, too,
oh
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's the
I mean,
right
you're
age to
talking
wait.
you're talking a long time here that you wait to figure it out because one, you invested, decent draft capital into him with where you picked, and then where you picked him. And then two, because of what he had been at one point, you wait even longer than you would even on a on another guy because when you're top where they're basically the number one player in the country coming out of high school and stuff like that, like that's not a mistake, right? It happens because and by the way, sometimes like guys drop because there's character issues. That's not the case either. It's strictly injury stuff. So if it takes 2 years, 3 years to come back, I mean it's a long time, but even like on a 2-year timeline, he's 21 years old. So it's not, this is by no means stamping out the chances of him having a career. Is far from it. He's way too young. Way too young. But my thing just is resolute in the, if you were at all thinking that if you're all thinking you were going to see him play NBA minutes like this early season, there's no chance. I don't think. I don't think there's any way. I can't imagine that's the case. I'd be shocked if that was the case. Two, because the way the Nets are built right now, if he just kind of disappears into Long Island for months and months, and we check in every once in a while to sort of see how it's going, that's just a totally acceptable outcome, and probably at this point a preferable outcome, just because it's just not look close.
And the one thing that I'll say to cap it off, tying it back to the top and talking about Jalen Wilson and Summer League, G League, NBA, the reps are built different. I've seen some fans say, well, even if Dariq Whitehead struggles, because this is a tanking team, because you don't care about wins or losses this year, play him minutes, give him all the minutes to develop at the NBA level. And this is where you have to push back, because there are detrimental minutes that you can give a young player who's trying to develop at the NBA level. You put him in an NBA game right now, tomorrow, and he is going to get eaten alive. And you actually can. You can break a player mentally, and then that can go ahead and drag down any opportunity for them to develop their skill set and get there. I would not go that route here with Dariq Whitehead of throw him in the deep end and then let him develop his way out of it. I think you're way better off building up reps and confidence at G League, and then having him, by the way, as every NBA player does, earn his way into the NBA and earn his way into those minutes, because otherwise you actually could do, I think, real long-term damage to the kid's development.
There's just no reason to. There's no reason to do it. There's just no reason. The Nets have a full roster now without him. There's just no reason. I don't see any upside to doing it. So I totally agree there. One more quick note. They seem pretty good. A few people have asked me about Jacob Gilyard over on X.
Well, I tell you what, he rained fire from 40 yards out a couple times in yesterday's game, which was pretty nice.
Yeah, so my thought on him is like pretty sad. Like, had a nice little summer league here. He's so small that if you bring him in there as like a backup point guard, because you need to just have some. I mean, the Nets, again, they're still very devoid of just really just guys who can dribble. And so if you just need him to sort of run the point, but it's just, you can see it. Like, the entry passes are tough because he's too small. It's just, you can't. It's just like the NBA is hard. Like, if you have to be so amazing to be, like, if you're around 6 feet tall, you have to be unbelievable. If you're like less than 6'3", you have to be awesome at like everything else. And other than that, it's just really just too. It's just, frankly, it's just a size thing for him. I think he just is just too small. But I wouldn't be shocked if something happened with him, mostly because the Nets are going to need some guards here to do something. So I could see him maybe having a chance just because of that.
And obviously Nets fans have Chris Chiozza in their mind, right? And he flashed with the Nets for a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Like, but you know what though? Again, I'll tie it back to Gilyard. He's shown enough in summer league to say, hey, for our roster and what we're doing this season, he can get a call up. We can give him a little bit of run. But I think that you look at him as being like, this is a great like G League kind of lifer. Always probably really helps a lot of guys develop at that level because he has pretty good court vision and all those things. But it's just going to be one step too far to bring that and be successful consistently at the NBA level. Yeah, but I think we'll see him, of course, in this.
You just can't, like, you can't run pick and roll. You're too small. It's just like you can't. Yeah. It's just too easy for defenders. That's just really the biggest problem. Okay, we're gonna get out of here. We'll be back again, obviously tomorrow, talking more about sort of like how this offseason is shaping up, what we expect to see out of the final summer league game. In the meantime, make sure that you subscribe to Locked On Nets wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a 5-star review as well. Don't bother if you're not going to do 5 stars. 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube as well.
A goal is not always meant to be reached. It often serves simply as something to aim at. And that is Bruce Lee.
Oh, one of the all-time great poets. We're back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Basketball.